Good evening, or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our work session.
Well, thanks for having us.
Oh, glad that you can make it. I will start with page 1, Bill 25-18 with Mr. Dave Thomas.
Why is he here?
Good afternoon, Mr. Thomas.
Chairman Jones, members of the council, Bill 2518 repeals and replaces last year's Bill 15-17 with the current maps for the water, sewer, and transportation deficient areas as required by the growth management article of the zoning regulations. There are no water deficient areas in the 2018 maps. One area of concern on the sewer map has been removed, and the transportation map, the memo from Bureau of Transportation, Traffic Engineering and Transportation Planning gives the details of all of the performance of signalized intersections that perform at levels D, E, or F. And drafts of all of the maps have been provided to the council so that you'll see, they accompany the bill, of course, and you see exactly what it is that you'll be voting on. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you.
And I'm going to move around for a second and go to a fiscal matter to page 10. Mr. Keith Dorsey.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the County Council. I'm before you to ask for approval for 3 contracts that pertain to temporary staffing services for skilled labor at our Central Acceptance Facility, CAF, which is located in Cockeysville. You're familiar with that as also the location for the recycling facility for the county. We have individuals who work there in terms of skilled labor, both in terms of production mechanics, one electrician, and several production operators. But it's, in a review of how to keep the facility running at its optimum, we wanted to have the flexibility to bring on temporary staff while vacancies are being filled. And so this is a request for approval, working with 3 different temp service agencies who can provide those skilled labor during the interim period. There was an initial contract for $25,000 to get going, and then we're asking for approval for a total $270,000 for the 1-year contract to cover potential vacancies that would occur.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Any questions? Mr. Dorsey, if I could, do you know how many incarcerated people do they have working up there?
I don't know exactly at this point in time. I know it's been, it ranged at 10 or so. It's varied. Do you know, Donna, specifically?
We have upwards of 30 per day.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
After you're done, I have a follow-up on that.
Oh yeah, I was thinking to myself. I was listening to what you were saying about the contracts and the skilled labor, and when you said sometimes you're waiting for vacancies to be filled, and in my mind I was thinking, what are we waiting for, another arrest? That's like an inside joke inside my crazy brain. Yes, Councilman Quirk.
Yeah, Mr. Dorsey, just a question for you as far as inmates and service to the county. I've heard from many different people in the past, we would use some of these inmates, and they would drive around the county doing as-needed things. Like, for example, if there was a lot of trash on a road someplace, or if we need a lawn cut, and apparently they were quite effective, this crew of people that were deployed in the past. And I was told that these workers now have all been redeployed to places such as this. Is that true? Do we have like a go-to group that would just respond to constituent issues a lot using inmates, and now we redeployed them?
Well, one, in terms of, let me just make sure, for everyone's benefit, they're not driving by themselves.
Right.
They've been, they
Yeah, they're in a crew and they're supervised.
Right,
But
they're
did
supervised.
we used to have them out, like, responding to constituent complaints, and now we shifted them elsewhere?
Well, in terms of their work, there may have been times when they were used, but most of that in terms of, we still coordinate everything through property management in terms of, if you're talking about grass cutting and those particular needs, and we would respond as needed in terms of those services, and we have services we're doing. But yes, some of the jobs that correctional people were doing are being redeployed currently to the recycling facility.
Is there a shortage of, I mean, I don't know, like what is the limit on how many people we have from the
Well,
jail that can help?
It's a matter of how many people want to work in terms of, because they may be incarcerated, but we're getting them to cooperate and volunteer to be part of work crews. That's one factor. Another factor is in terms of whatever they're in jail for. Some places it's not appropriate. You have problems of, you have a problem with them in terms of being able to have enough security there. There are some of the positions that were utilized in terms of working with women inmates as opposed to the male inmates. So there's some different factors that come into play as to whether or not we have enough. There have been times when we have been running tight in terms of having enough. But right now, it's that most of them, yes, are being deployed in terms of the recycling facility.
Okay, any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. I would only ask that, we, I guess, make sure we make arrangements if we're going to deploy all the incarcerated people to the Central Acceptance Facility, that we not forget about the rest of the citizens who want their streets cleaned. Because I'm told that, I was told the same thing, that the crew that normally would do something we asked them to do is now transferred to the Central Acceptance Facility. I wasn't sure because I was thinking Liberty Road. I know we have state prisoners walking up and down Liberty Road sometimes, maybe once every month or once every 2 months. So I was sort of confused. So I told my staff, I was like, are you sure that's county prisoners and not state prisoners? But now, listening to Councilman Quirk, it appears as though they were correct, that it was prisoners from our jail.
There was limited use in terms of certain locations, but as I said, with the issue of, in the case of mowing, certainly we've taken a comprehensive look at that, and so there is not a matter of things not getting done as a result of this reallocation. We are, when there are valid, requests for service, we are responding to it. I hope that would be the case. If not, please let me know if there's areas where you're not getting that service that you would have expected.
Okay, Councilman Quirk.
I think one thing that all of us, and we've talked about this numerous times as a council, and an issue that's constantly coming up and we're hearing from constituents is trash. We definitely feel like there's a growing problem with trash being picked up on the sides of the streets and everything else. And some of it's obviously state, but I wish we had a number that we could just call and be like, look, I got this issue over here, or I got this issue over here. In the day that you called, it just could be taken care of. And I feel like just judging from what I've heard from other council people in the past, that this Fix-It crew of people and inmate population were amazing, and they were able to get so much done. And I wish we could resurrect that, because I've heard nothing but good things about that program, and I'd love to see us do something a little more flexible, where we don't have to call you or Donna or George Klunk to get it to happen. It's just respectfully said.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Go right ahead.
I'm going to just add on to those comments. I'm going to disagree with Councilman Quirk just for just one thing. I don't think that we should, as council members or even the public, should have to call. If we had an ongoing program like we did before, and we're just generally taking better care of the roadways that we know that are just sort of chronic trash receptacles, I think that would go a long way. So I would appreciate if the administration could look back into resurrecting that program.
Me too.
Regular cycle. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I just went, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure,
I just went through that on Ebenezer Road. I mean, it looked like a trash truck exploded on it, and for 3 months, and Mr. Welsh will tell you, I contacted many times, and the inmates were, working somewhere else, and it's a dangerous road, so I can't really ask volunteers to clean it up. There's no pull-off. There's ditches on both sides, and it took a very long time before finally the county got out there. But I did have individuals trying to get out there themselves and clean it up, and they're putting themselves in a very dangerous situation. Houses are not on this stretch of, it's a lot of farmland, and the trash was just kind of collecting in the brush alongside of the road. So it was in much better shape when they were on a regular cycle. So I think that is something worth looking at again.
And I will say, when we do call, when we call the shop, and Mr. Walsh is here today, the shop is very responsive. I don't know what your experiences are with the highway shops that take care of your roadways, but very responsive. But again, there seem to be little resources applied to ongoing. It seems to be complaint driven, where maybe we can work on that.
Actually, I think the piece of equipment that cleaned that up was the ones that were purchased with stormwater fees with the vac trucks, and they were walking it along. I was on Ebenezer Road and past it. They were walking it along the road, sucking up all the trash on the side of the road, and it really made a difference.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move along to page 8, Bill 26-18. Mrs. Bevins?
That would be me. So back in 2007, Baltimore County, I was working for the previous administration at the time. Baltimore County created the rental registration program because we had tens of thousands of rental properties with absentee landlords, and these were chronic properties that were in disrepair, and the county, we could never find out who the owners were. I mean, these were deplorable conditions that some of these homes and apartments were in. So that was implemented back in 2007. But recently, it was only through a complaint about a property that I realized what some of the specifics were with the rental registration program. I thought that all rental properties would be registered under the rental registration. I did not know that if you had well or septic that you were exempt from rental registration, which makes absolutely no sense at all. What does it matter whether you receive city water through a line or you receive well water? If you have a property and you are profiting from renting that property, you should want the same safeguards in place that are in place for everyone else. Why would you want something different for that? And it seems that some of these homes were exempt due to a previous councilman in northern Baltimore County that wanted to exempt certain farms and where migrant workers were living and things like that. So we took a look at it. This is not creating more rental properties. This is just making sure that the already rental properties that exist are all equal. They have to have their hardwired, smoke detectors. They just can't be battery operated because we know sometimes the batteries die or they fail, and we don't want that happening. They must have the carbon monoxide detectors. I mean, that's a must. I mean, you can't even build a new house now without a sprinkler system. I mean, there's just all these safeguards that we need to have in effect. There must be hot and cold running water. Well, wouldn't you expect that if you were paying rent? I think that's a given. And the toilets must flush. I think that's a given, too. So I don't think we're asking too much. This is just ensuring that all rental properties are safe. So this will add a few more homes back into the rental registration program. Is Mr. Moeller here? I thought, oh, there he is. There he is. Okay. I thought Mr. Moeller's going to talk about this. I think you are. I didn't even see you back there.
Any additional comments?
No, I just think that, the community support this, and I think this is very helpful if you are a council member that represents communities that have a lot of rentals. The community associations and the neighbors will tell you, since the rental registration program was implemented back in 2007, it has made their lives so much easier with code enforcement issues, police issues, and just knowing who to contact that owns a home in Baltimore County. It was pretty dicey before trying to figure out who owned what and how many properties they owned. And now, through this program, we are able to identify those landlords. So, of course, that you want people who are paying rent. Everybody should have a safe environment to live in, whether they pay $400 a month rent or $4,000 a month rent. We should expect everyone to be in this program and participating.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Jim Allman, the legislative aide to Councilwoman Bevins, asked me to talk about the history and a little bit about rental registration, but I don't think I could improve upon what Councilwoman Bevins has just said. We're very proud because I guess it's been my baby since the inception. When we started, we had 249 properties in the pilot program, and we're now over 23,500 individual dwelling units. So we're actually very proud of that, and I thank the Councilwoman for her words. According to this bill, a couple of things that it does do. The one on the public sewage that Councilwoman Bevins was referencing, we currently have 895 of those that we know about. We have 895 that have volunteered their information. By law, they don't have to tell us. They've been kind enough to tell us that. We have 895. I will tell you that in working with our very fine OIT department, there are 5,200 properties in Baltimore County that aren't on public sewage and water. 5,200. Now we're working, since this inception of this bill, we're working on culling that down so we know who or whom to contact in the future about getting their properties registered. We know that 1,700 of those are currently owner-occupied. But we also have a gap that we're trying to get, and the additional time will give us be a benefit as we try and cull it down, because we have 3,000 accounts, properties identified as being vacant. So we've got to cull that down, make sure that we're on top and get all these people registered. The second aspect of this bill involved the exemption of renting to a family member. It currently stands at by blood, marriage, or adoption. Those tentacles reach far and wide. The bill presented makes it much linear of grandparents, parents, and children. We currently have 748 properties that have registered as a family member in there. And what we will do moving forward, if this amendment passes, certainly now the responsibility will be to identify who's actually living in there. It doesn't change the fact that they may be renting to a family member, just now they'll have to register it. So that's and they already have to do the lead, which is a state program. They already have to do the carbon monoxide, which is ours. So the only next step is the application and the inspection. And then the third aspect, the group homes, is very, very minimal. We only have 9 of those in the Baltimore County. And the definition of group homes, just so you totally understand, it's not what you would think of recovering addicts or a halfway house. The group home definition is actually 3 or more attached together in a specific block. And we only have 9 of those. It's a minimal problem getting them to register. So I thank the councilwoman. I do have a packet, and if any of you have any questions, I have everything that we have basically on our website that shows you what our capabilities of. We have all of our rental units by councilmatic district, zip code, how you can go and look up a specific street. And we also manage the public nuisance complaints of which we've had 26 complaints since we instituted that back in 2010. That's not the nuisance complaint that you had a couple of years ago. This was started actually in 2010. And Councilwoman, that one, we've actually had one revocation in 8 years.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. I was wondering, just so people have an idea of, that this isn't a huge expense, could you tell us exactly what the application fee is for somebody that's renting, that's entering the program, and what the cost is every time that is it every 3 years?
The program is every 3 years. It's a $50 for 3 year, and that's $1.38 a month to the property owner, which around the state is the most reasonable. I can tell you Worcester County is $145 a year. Montgomery County is $91 a year, and we're $50 for 3 years. The biggest expense comes with the inspection. It's required by an outside home inspector, and we've set it up that it wasn't an inspection as if you would have your home inspected to sell. It was a basic safety inspection that would take 30 to 45 minutes, and the biggest reason for people failing is the smoke detectors.
And then that inspector reports back to the county on their final inspection.
The outside home inspector, they must be licensed by the state of Maryland. Yes, they sign off on the inspection sheet that the house is passed. And that cost can go anywhere, believe it or not, from $75 to $350. It's like any other business. You have to shop the inspector.
Right. And there will be an amendment, correct, Mr. Petticourt, and for September 1. I'm sorry, Mr. Bosworth, you worked on this.
Mr. Field had actually mentioned that to me when he reviewed the bill, that prior iterations of the rental registration program allowed a period of time for people to comply,
Sure.
and then for PAI to begin enforcement, and I believe September 1 is the date.
Okay. I think that's fair. That gives you enough time.
Very much, and we thank you for that extension. We potentially could be sending out anywhere from 2,500 to 6,000 letters.
I'm telling you, community associations will be thrilled to death because they still have problems with a lot of properties. But, we had a complaint about an apartment building in Overley, and we found out it wasn't in the rental registration because it wasn't on public water. And that made no sense to me that an apartment building right across the street had to have these requirements, but yet they didn't, just because of the way they received their water. So I think this would be a great service to our communities. I hope that all my colleagues will support this, and thank you for your time and efforts on it.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councilman Crandall.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Mueller. How are you? Do we have any sort of idea or an estimate on how many rentals we may have in Baltimore County that aren't registered, that are not registered? I know it's a tough question.
Well, again, right now, we believe that given the program is about 11 years old, quite honestly, we don't use the "we don't know about it" excuse anymore. We've been around. The real estate agents all know. We believe that we're within 90%, if not more. Now, we're only as good as the community associations and people, and I can tell you we get probably 50 to 75 a week of people as they check our registration. They check our online reports by street, and they notify us, and we immediately go to correction notice to get, and then it's up to the property owner to explain why it's not registered.
And that's fairly consistent, 50 to 75 complaints?
A week?
A week?
Yes.
Okay, wow.
But not all of them end up needing to be registered. Because, for example, that's the purpose of this bill. They may have a family member in there. People just don't know it's a family member. But we do get a number of complaints, and we act on them immediately.
In your informational packet, is any of that information in there? In the packet that you provided us today? In terms of unregistered, um,
No, the only thing we would have a
complaints.
handle on is the number. I can get you the number of complaints easy enough. I believe, as we did it for the budget purposes for the auditors. If memory serves me correctly, and I will get it to you exactly, I believe the number of complaints we had last year was 1,800. Please don't hold me to that, but remembering what I sent to the auditors, but I will get you that number exactly.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Good, Councilor.
Yeah, quick question. When this legislation was drafted, is there any situation where you may have duplicate agencies of state government, county, federal, enforcing the same regulations?
The only where we not within the county,
No,
but we enforce the state law of lead. It's the state's bill, it's the
Right.
state's requirement. We are there enforcing ARM.
Right.
And I will tell you, quite honestly, the state's very happy that we do
I'm
that.
sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
because you do not get registered unless you show us your lead certificate and your lead registration number. You won't get a license. So the state's very happy to let us do that.
What about Section 8?
Section 8, the Section 8s they get inspected yearly. For our purposes, we only use their inspection every 3 years, but our own in-house inspectors do the Section 8s. So, yes, I guess they're the only inspectors that do it in-house. It's the Section 8, because they have to do it yearly.
So you do it how often? Every 3 years?
We're every 3 years, so
3
we
years.
accept the Section 8 inspections every 3 years. However, Section 8 requires a yearly inspection.
So what you're saying is there's no real duplication. In other words, Section 8 will do it every year, but when the third year comes up, you accept the report from Section 8. Got it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Moeller, I was curious. One of the things that sort of, I guess, bothered me is in the city they have a rental registration. And from time to time I'll have a property that I have no intentions of renting at all. But the property is under renovation. And the mere fact that I'm an absentee landowner, they require me to pay a rental registration at $100 and some. And I tell them I have no intentions of renting it. The property is under renovation. It's going to be sold. It's never going to be rented. Yet their rules are, because it is vacant, because I don't live there, I must pay for a rental registration. So I'm curious, is that the same thing that happens here in Baltimore County?
No, Councilman. We do not. They can certainly register it ahead, register it in anticipation. If there's no intent, if it's vacant and no intent to rent it, no, we hands off by Baltimore County. We do not collect a fee. We merely move on.
Okay. Any more questions? All right, thank you very much. We have another speaker.
Who's clapping? Who's clapping?
Mr. Moeller, I'm sorry, I know you don't testify that often. You bring a fan club with you?
Here we go. I better turn my mic off.
Mr. Mark Baskerville. Mr. Baskerville, how are you doing today?
Doing fine. Hope y'all are doing well.
Good.
Thank you. So I'm opposed to this bill. I think there's some serious costs that may not have been taken into account here, as well as some potential unconstitutionality of this entire program. I'll start with that second part first. So we've got the requirement to go. This is effectively compelling people to contract with home inspectors or else face the punishments for not having a licensed rental. So you're forcing people to buy a product from a private or a service from a private service. And, in effect, you're also conscripting these home inspectors as agents of the state and compelling unwarranted searches of people's property. So there may be some potential Fourth Amendment violations there. As far as the actual cost, are any of you familiar with the actual punishment of having an unlicensed rental property? If you look at county code, that cost is $1,000 per unit per day. This is completely draconian and will destroy people financially. Even if there's nothing wrong technically with their property other than simply being non-compliant and unlicensed, there may be no blight or any other problems. It's just they simply haven't gotten their license and they have a renter in there. So if somebody has, for example, maybe 3 dwelling units in a single property that's unlicensed, that's $3,000 per day that the county has in its current code the power to impose on that landowner. Let that, just do the math, a week of that, $21,000 that person owes to the county. The county has the power to destroy that property owner's life financially. So be aware of that cost. Also, there's time and income lost in waiting for these approvals. So don't forget that entire cost, and that's a massive economic cost to landlords who are waiting on these rental property inspections to be approved, even if there's nothing wrong with their property. So we're talking thousands of property owners now that are going to be added into this entire scheme on top of the thousands who are already part of the scheme. So, and also with the relatives, you're not allowing brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, only parents and grandparents and children and grandchildren to be exempted. Seems pretty ridiculous, in my opinion, for the reasons I've stated, and I'm out of time, but that's my thought on the matter. If anybody has any questions for me.
I don't have any questions, but I have a statement. When you say, it's ridiculous that you be forced to have a certified inspector, you're forcing to use that product. If I had a car that needed to be serviced, I'm going to take it to a certified technician. If I, have something specific, I can't let the guy next door come in and say, yeah, that's hardwired, right? Or, yeah, your furnace is hooked up, right? Or, yeah, your hot water. You have to have somebody with some type of certification to do that, right? You just can't let, if you are using a service, when you hire a contractor to build a deck, you make sure that they're a licensed contractor, correct?
The point here...
No, I'm not asking for I'm asking you a question. I'm saying if you're using a service, you have to go...
I think you're changing the subject completely.
Pardon me?
The issue here is that people
I already
are being
heard your
compelled.
issue. I have 3 points that I'm making to you. You said that you would be...
We're talking about rental housing licenses. Please don't change
It's
the
my
subject.
bill. I'm perfectly aware of what I'm
Okay.
talking about,
So
sir.
you're changing the subject to a totally different area.
Do you
We're not
rent your
even
mother's
discussing the issue
basement? Do you
anymore.
rent your mother's basement?
No.
Oh.
What was your point?
I'm just asking you. Do you rent your mother's basement?
All right, so you're changing the subject and you're trying to make
No,
some
I'm
kind of
asking you a
joke.
question. I'm not changing the subject. Do you rent your mother's basement?
I just answered it, and you're really focusing on that and trying to, I guess, deflect away
I'm
from
not
all the points
deflecting.
that I'm
You
making.
asked me, you made a statement that you're being forced to use a service.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, when you do business with anyone, you want to go to that person that's certified. You're not being forced to use a service. You
Yes,
have
you're
to
being
use a
forced.
certified person.
You're being forced because if you don't do it, you're going to be fined $1,000 per day
It
or
could
more.
be, first off, it could be, is Mr. Mulder still in the room? It could be up to $1,000. Doesn't mean it will be. Do you want to speak to that?
I don't know that the code says that.
Well, why don't we wrap up Mr. Baskerville, and
Well-
so we don't.
Right, yeah.
Go ahead. What
Yeah.
you want to say something else to Mr. Baskerville?
No, he's had his 3 minutes.
Anybody else?
No, you've had your 3
Thank-
minutes. Mr.
thank-
Mulder?
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, well, I'd be able to respond to his comments if I have a differing opinion.
You're not responding to mine. You just want to say I'm deflecting. I'm asking you a
I'm
question.
talking about Mr. Moeller.
Well, he's in
Well,
charge.
He's going
What's
to
that?
He's in charge.
He's going to answer the question. We thank you for your testimony.
All right, thanks for the time.
And I guess my point, Mr. Chair, would be if you are a landlord, you're running a business. Whether you have one property, 2 properties, 5 properties, or 10 properties, you're running a business, and there's a cost to doing business. And if you are going to rent properties, you know, I wasn't a part of this in 2007, but I can tell you that my communities have totally benefited from this program. You're not going to find one community association anywhere from northern Baltimore County, eastern Baltimore County to the west that's going to say this is a bad program. No, but they support the bill. We have letters of support from our community associations. Mr. Muller's up here, so if you want to talk about the fine.
No, I will be glad to go offline and explain our program to the gentleman at length. First of all, as far as the fines, yes, we can go up to $1,000. I can tell you in 11 years, it has happened one time because we had a slum landlord that wouldn't register. We couldn't get him to register for over 3 years. We had to make a statement. We made that statement. The house is registered, and it's one time in 11 years. We don't do that. We don't like to fine people. That's not our point. Our point is get the house. Yes. The other point the gentleman made about a difference in time, we encourage everyone to have it registered by the time that you rent it. We are not anti-citizenry. We allow, certainly if you are renting it, we don't make you stop. We don't kick out your tenants. We just encourage you, please, within a reasonable, we believe 2 weeks is reasonable to get the inspection done. And the third point the gentleman made about the family, it doesn't stop any family member at all from being in that property. The only difference your bill does, if it's not that linear family member, is that now you have to register it. Right. You have to make one more step because you've already done the lead, you've already done the carbon monoxide. The last step is just the inspection. So I don't think it's that invasive to a homeowner.
And we do the same thing in code enforcement. I mean, we have correction notices and citations in code enforcement, and we relax fines all the time because Baltimore County isn't in the habit of trying to collect fines. They want you to come into compliance. So this is really no different. So again, I would just like to say that my communities in the 6th District support this, and they welcome it.
Thank you.
Oh,
Hold
thank
on,
you.
Mr. Moeller. Go ahead, Councilman Katz.
Yeah, thank you. You had said that the county inspects once every 3 years. And does the county charge for that inspection?
No, again, that inspection is done by an outside home inspector, which must be licensed by the state of Maryland. If you have your Maryland state inspection license, that's the requirement once every 3 years, and that is a citizen-businessman relationship.
Gotcha.
So that's a negotiable fee that we don't enter into.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Quirk?
And I think, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think from a lead inspection standpoint, the state passed a new law that if you get a new tenant, each and every time you get a new one, you have to get another lead test, which are about $200 and some each test, generally speaking.
It could be, yes. Lead tests get expensive, but again, that's not the county's law.
Right.
That's the state law that we enforce.
Thank you.
I did have one question. Just off the top of my head, I was thinking, what is a reasonable cost for an inspection?
We would like to think it's around $125. Because and we tell people when they contact us, which they do every day, a lot, is that make sure before you bring the inspector out, review the inspection sheet. The biggest reason people fail is the smoke detectors. That's the number one reason they fail. Just go through our inspection sheet, make sure that everything is appropriate, and then, therefore, that inspection should be no more than 30 to 45 minutes.
And there's enough people doing it for $125?
This was the original program was a boom to the home inspector business. They applauded the council, trust me.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is your estimate at the percent of owners, landlords that don't comply every 3 years or neglect to get an inspection?
I'll try not to be long-winded.
Sure.
We have gotten to the point, thankfully, again, for our fine OIT department, that we are now like the DMV. 90 days prior to your inspection being due, you get a letter from us. Excuse me, you got 90 days, it's coming up. When that doesn't happen, unfortunately, we issue a correction notice, and then we take it through the system. I'd hate to hazard a guess off the top of my head how many don't, what that percentage is. But again, we're very successful. My staff, and I give so much credit to Kathleen O'Donnell, who's been with me almost since day one. Believe me, very few people fall through the cracks.
Do you have the power to, let's say, a landlord just has not complied for 6 months, a year, to pull the registration and the person has to move, or what is that situation?
What we do, Councilman, is follow the process just like code enforcement. So we go correction notice, citation. If you don't show up at your citation hearing, that is a $1,000 fine that's non-appealable. If you don't show up. Now, again, the percentages on that, believe me, there are quite a few that don't show up. But again, we work with people. If they finally contact us, we will waive that $1,000 if you do it in a reasonable amount of time. But then the process starts over again. So we go back to correction notice, back to citation, back to a hearing, and until you register it. And to that gentleman's point, we had one in 11 years where we had to make a statement with $1,000 a day, and that property is now registered. But that's the process.
Okay.
So we kind of stay after you until it's registered.
Okay, so you don't have a situation where someone is going to end up being displaced because the landlord... Good. Okay.
Never.
Thank you.
I was a little curious. You said it's non-appealable, but if they contact you, you work with them.
Again, it's a non-appealable fine, but we can't always, believe me, we can't always trust the mail, okay? Because I know firsthand sometimes our mail doesn't reach the owner, okay? It may reach the tenant who discards it, and we quite honestly believe that most people will register it. After having done this for 11 years, we know we got a good sense of who's avoiding us and trying not to do it versus those that really didn't get the piece of mail. Now, with, again, our OIT, and we're about 12 to 14% now who are doing it online. We're trying to drive people to the online registration. And when they do that, we've got the email thread so that we know that you either got it and we know that you're communicating back with us. So as we continue to drive people online, that number will go way, way down.
I just want to be clear what he was saying is that the only thing that's non-appealable is if you fail to appear at the code enforcement hearing, then it becomes non-appealable. But the law provides that the Director of Permits, Approvals, and Inspections always has the ability to reduce the citations. And so I think what Mike is saying is even under those circumstances, if you work with us, the odds are good the citation will be, the penalty will be lowered a little bit. But everything is typically appealable, but you have to have shown up at the code enforcement hearing in the first place. And so that's the only circumstance under which it's considered non-appealable.
I thank Mike Field for that, yes, because I failed to. It's not, we don't do it, it's Mike Moeller not making the decision. The decision rests with Arnold Jablon.
Well, I guess my only question, and then I'm going to pass it on to Councilman Quirk, is if something happened to me while I was on my way to the hearing, and I had some paper that said it was non-appealable, I'm the type of person who will call anyway. Somebody's going to have to tell me no. But there's plenty of other people who would read the words. It says non-appealable, and they'll think, oh, well, so sad, I got an accident, I got a flat tire, it's non-appealable, I guess I have to pay the $1,000. That's my only question. Councilman Quirk?
I was just thinking about what you were saying, Mr. Chairman, about the city of Baltimore. And so they're making you register if you're doing renovations on a house. And I was kind of thinking about tools that can help the county go after homes that are just sitting there vacant or maybe bank-owned that nobody's really doing anything with. And so I don't know if there's some type of solution, that we haven't thought about there, but I don't know, it's just something to think about, because I wish we had more power when we had these deadbeat homeowners or, say, out-of-state homeowners that are just letting their houses just rot. Boy, would I like to send them a loud message. So, I don't know.
Councilman, you're absolutely right. We've looked at that issue back and forth, and a lot of it is governed by state law, foreclosure laws and such. The tools that we have are law enforcement, code enforcement, rental registration. So, Mr. Chair, I kind of jumped in there, but I do have a question, since it's not necessarily on rental registration, but it has to do, since we have the brains in the room, I'd like to ask the question, what is the difference between a house charged by the police, charged as operating a disorderly household? What is the difference between that charge and the public nuisance law and provisions that we have?
They're very similar. They're very similar. The big difference is your disorderly house. We're the last stop on that train. It goes through the court system. Mm-hmm. That's the big difference. And it's eventually a judge who would decide the fate, where the public nuisance that we have in our rental registration starts with us, and then we take it forward through the ALJ. Mm-hmm. That's the big difference. One goes through the courts, one is our system.
Both are still based on calls for service for the police department and code enforcement violations, a series of either or all the above? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Moeller. Moving on to page 18, correspondence, non-competitive awards. Okay. Page 14, Steve Walsh. Resolution 34-18, designation of residential permit parking areas.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, good afternoon.
Mr. Walsh, how are you doing?
All right. Resolution 34-18 concerns the designation of an expansion of the residential permit parking area A in the east part of Towson, eastern area of Towson. County Code establishes a procedure for the establishment of residential parking areas on residential streets in certain residential zones. Starts out with a petition signed by at least 65% of the owners of the area. Petition sent to the Department of Public Works. We conduct a study. We apply the study results to specific criteria in the county code, and then we make a recommendation and bring it before council. Residential permit parking A was established by Council Resolution 54-80. It currently includes 520 homes off York Road in the east part of Towson there. And this Resolution 34-18 proposes to add 109 homes to the area, and the homes are located on Worcester, Aintree, Hastings, Coventry, Yarmouth, York, and Wilton roads, and that's shown on a map in your package. This expansion of Area A would allow residents to have a reasonable probability of parking in front of their homes by removing long-term commuters from the area. This extension was requested by petition of area residents. We did conduct the studies required under the code and found that the requirements for the recommended expansion have been met. The public hearing was held on December 5th, 2017, to discuss the findings and allow for community input. And we shared the results with the community. It is important to note that 71% of the parked vehicles were registered to non-residents in the area.
Were they Baltimore County residents?
Baltimore County residents?
Okay.
So following creation of the permitted parking area, the Public Works would place necessary signs on the affected streets, and the residents would obtain the permits from PIA.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Councilman Marks.
Thank you very much. This is, for my colleagues' information, the Wiltondale community. It's the community across the street from St. Joseph Hospital. As you correctly noted, they've had issues with Towson University students, more recently with contractors parking there who are working on the life sciences building. It does surpass the threshold needed for local support. I believe it could be an effective tool to helping those residents deal with the parking situation in their neighborhood.
Any more questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Make a quick question about trash.
Certainly.
Follow up on the discussion previously.
Sure.
It's certainly a big issue, and I fully support the continued dialogue about it because it's really all of our problem, not just Public Works issue. Ms. Morrison and I were communicating a couple of weeks back about a renewed marketing effort on our Adopt a Road program, and that is a tool that's out there. I'd ask your assistance in whenever given the opportunity to talk to community groups that if they are willing to step up and go through the process, that any outside citizen participation in picking up litter and trash is a help to us because we can't do it all with the miles and miles of roadways that we have. So I can fire an email. There's a link on the county website underneath Public Works and Highways to that program. It's been around a long, long time, but we haven't done a great job of marketing that program, so we're going to keep talking about it a little bit more as time goes on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, any more questions? I would just like to remind everyone looking that we have, $3.2 billion in the budget. We're going to be having a budget hearing tonight on that $3.2 billion, so if you have an opinion about what we should be doing with it, feel free to come out. Probably not so much, but if you want to talk about the budget, come on out tonight at 6 p.m. All right, thank you very much.
It's only 100,000.
Come on out and talk about it. I'll come out here and say, give it to me.